Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. I haven't really been covering since the beginning when I first did the video on the Ruby Franke family situation. There's been so much horrible stuff, and her plea deal apparently is even worse, and I haven't read the whole thing, so I'm going to kind of go through it. And again, just be prepared. There could be trigger warnings here. I have read some of the basics of what she pled to, and it does involve a lot of abuse against her children in multiple ways. So this is from Law and Crime, and just going to sift through their article here. Former YouTube vlogging star Ruby Franke appeared in a Washington County, Utah State court on Monday, where she pleaded guilty to 4 counts of second-degree felony child abuse, and authorities confirmed to Law and Crime. She's currently scheduled to appear in court again in February of 2024 for her sentencing hearing. Now, under state law, a second-degree felony child abuse charge carries a maximum sentence of up to 15 years in prison, as well as a $19,000 fine. The plea agreement states that Franke will serve a prison term and that her sentences for each of the 4 felonies will be served consecutively, meaning one after the other. She's also required to testify against her co-defendant in the case, Jody Hildebrandt. And of course, we know she was arrested back in August and charged with the 6 counts of felony child abuse after her 12-year-old son, who was emancipated and had open wounds, climbed from a window and escaped from a home where he had allegedly been starved and bound with duct tape. Yeah. So she was a part of all this online stuff, and there's her partner, Jody. Let's see. As you guys can hear, Toby has quite the opinion about Ruby Franke. So let me just get to the filing, her plea agreement, so we can kind of go through that. There are 10 pages, so... Okay, so this is the plea agreement here. Again, it's from the 5th District Court, Washington County, State of Utah. State of Utah versus Ruby Franke. And there's her charges listed here. All the charges are listed. I will include a link to the article, as always. And you guys can read it for yourself if you would like to read. There's count 1, aggravated child abuse. Count 3, aggravated child abuse. Count 5, aggravated child abuse. Count 6, aggravated child abuse. So it states here, I understand that by pleading guilty, I will be admitting that I committed the crimes listed above. I stipulate and agree the following facts describe my conduct and the conduct of other persons for which I am criminally liable. The facts provide a basis for the court to accept my guilty plea and prove the elements of the crime or crimes to which I am pleading guilty. All right, so here we go. From approximately May 22nd, 2023 until August 30th, 2023 in Washington County, Utah, the defendant, Ruby Franke, intentionally or knowingly inflicted and allowed another adult to inflict serious physical injuries upon her children that were ages 9 and 11 to 12, as more fully described below. And there are the initials for the kids, so I'm not going to go into what the kids were, but I think everyone can kind of figure it out from the photos we have seen. Count 1, the defendant's actions involved the physical torture of RF. Initially, RF was forced to do physical tasks for hours and days at a time. These included wall sits, carrying boxes full of books up and down stairs, and working outside. Eventually, RF was forced to do outside labor without shoes and in the summer heat. My Lord. He was forced to stand in the direct sunlight for several days. He was forced to remain outside at all hours of the day and night for extended periods of time. These actions resulted in repeated and serious sunburns with blistered and sloughing skin. Poor kid. RF was denied adequate water for several of the days he was required to remain in the summer heat, and he was punished when he secretly consumed water. What the hell? He was denied sufficient food, and when given food, he was given very plain meals like rice and chicken, while others in the house ate regular and more flavorful meals. He was isolated from other people and denied all forms of entertainment, including books, notebooks, and electronics. In addition, after RF attempted to run away in July, his hands and feet were regularly bound. Binding included being tied to the defendant and to weights. Jeez. Many times, the binding included 2 sets of handcuffs, one on RF's wrists and one on his ankles. At times, with RF lying on his stomach, ropes were used to tie the 2 sets of handcuffs together so that his arms and lower legs were lifted off the ground. My gosh. The bindings resulted in injuries to RF's wrist and ankles where the handcuffs cut through the skin and damaged the muscle and tissue. These injuries were treated with homeopathic remedies and covered with duct tape. Then the bindings were placed on top of the duct tape. Specific instances of abuse committed by the defendant include 1. Kicking RF while wearing boots, 2. Holding his head underwater, and 3. Cutting off oxygen by placing her hands over his mouth and nose. What the hell? These are her children. Her flesh and blood, and this is how she's treating them. Count 2. The actions described above caused severe emotional harm to RF due to the fact that they began in May and escalated throughout the summer months. Additionally, the defendant and another adult regularly sought to indoctrinate RF and convince him that he was evil and possessed. My gosh. Yeah, she's real religious, And that he needed to willingly be obedient and to avoid punishments. And that the punishments were necessary to repent. He was also told that everything that was being done to him were acts of love. Yeah, that's not love, Ruby. That's like torture, and it's called a crime, honey. And this is why you're going to hopefully spend many, many years in jail. Count 3. The defendant's actions also caused severe emotional harm to EF. Other than binding and the specific instances of abuse RF was subjected to, EF was subjected to the same treatment as her brother. She was isolated and forced to do the physical tasks, remain outside, and denied food and water. She was also repeatedly told she was evil and possessed. The punishments were necessary for her to be obedient and to repent, and these things were being done to her in order to help her. EF was convinced that she was evil and needed to go through these things in order to repent. These poor kids. How awful. Count 4. The defendant's actions caused 2 or more physical injuries to EF. She was forced to work outside in the heat barefoot. She was also forced to run barefoot on dirt roads for an extended period of time. EF's feet were repeatedly injured by and she was repeatedly sunburned. When examined on August 30th, these wounds were apparent by scabs, blisters, and sloughing skin. My God. I tell you what, that's awful. And I've had blisters and not even close to that. I mean, this poor kids, I swear. Okay, now let's talk about how she's entering these pleas voluntarily. And then, she's saying that they're all, she's got the rights to a jury trial, right to compel witnesses, presumption of innocence, and burden of proof, and she can appeal. And then there's the consequences of entering a guilty plea. Goes into all of that. Plea agreement. My guilty plea is the result of a plea agreement between myself and the prosecuting attorney. All the promises, duties, and provisions of the plea agreement, if any, are fully contained in this statement, including those explained below. 1. The defendant agrees to plead guilty to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony. Count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony. Count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony. Count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony. 2. The state agrees to dismiss count 2, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony, and count 4, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony. 3. The defendant shall submit to a pre-sentence investigation with adult probation and parole. The defendant agrees to serve a prison term. Number 5, the sentence received for count 1, count 3, count 5, and count 6 are to be served consecutive to each other. 6, the defendant agrees to testify truthfully against Jody Hildebrandt, and in return, the Washington County Attorney's Office agrees to remain neutral regarding future hearings before the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole. So the part of her not only is to plead to all this, but she's got to testify against Jody. And it goes into about how all her rights here. Let's see. She can't have firearms. Let's see here. Defendant's certification of voluntariness. I am entering this plea of my own free will and choice. No force, threats, or unlawful influence of any kind have been made to get me to plead guilty. No promises except those contained in this statement have been made to me. I have read this statement, or I've had it read to me by my attorney, and I understand its contents and adopt each statement as it is my own. I know that I'm free to change or delete anything contained in the statement, but I do not wish to make any changes because all these statements are correct. I am satisfied with the advice and the assistance of my attorney. I am 41 years of age. I have attended school through the 12th grade. I can read and understand the English language. If I do not understand English, an interpreter has been provided to me. I was not under the influence of any drugs, medication, or intoxicants, which would impair my judgment when I decided to plead guilty. I am not presently under the influence of any drug, medication, or intoxicants which impair my judgment. I believe myself to be of sound and discerning mind and to be mentally capable of understanding these proceedings and the consequences of my plea. I am free of any mental disease, defect, or impairment that would prevent me from understanding what I'm doing and from knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entering my plea. And, of course, she signed it on 12/18/2023. And there's her attorney's signature. And I'm going to play the court proceeding from Monday. So again, she's pled guilty in the state of Utah. And she's going to have to testify against her friend Jody. I think that this was the right thing for her to do. Keeps her family from having to testify, her kids. And hopefully she changes her ways. I really hope she does. But, that's up to her. Alright, so here is her court appearance on Monday. Again, this is courtesy of Law and Crime.
Ms. Franke is now here. Mr. Winward, we are scheduled for a waiver hearing. Is there going to be a waiver today?
There will, plus a plea agreement, Your Honor.
All right.
I'll ask the bailiff to hand you if it's been executed.
All right. Mr. Winward, you have discussed with Ms. Franke a preliminary hearing, what's involved in a preliminary hearing. She understands she has a right to a preliminary hearing on all of the charges in the case. She understands what the charges are, and she's prepared to waive a preliminary hearing in the case on all charges.
She is, and that is contained in this agreement on page 7 as well.
Very good. All right. I've been handed a plea agreement, and it appears to be signed by Ms. Franke. Ms. Franke, did you sign this agreement?
Yes.
And you did that today? When did you sign it?
The 18th.
Okay. You've read it carefully?
Every word.
Your signature represents to the court that you've read it carefully, that you understand what you've read, and that you agree to all of the terms. Is that all accurate?
Yes.
You've had sufficient time to ask questions of your counsel, to go over any questions you have. You're ready to go forward.
Yes.
You don't need any more time.
I'm ready.
Ms. Franke, is anyone pressuring you to enter into this agreement?
No.
Anyone promising you anything I haven't been told about?
No.
Anything that's not in the written plea agreement?
No.
Are you under the influence of alcohol or drugs today?
No.
Is there anything today that could in any way interfere with your ability to understand the agreement, its consequences, anything?
No.
No physical condition, no medication, nothing?
No.
Any further record, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Windward, we ready to proceed?
We are ready to proceed.
All right, then. Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
There is a factual basis set forth in the agreement that is a stipulated factual basis, counsel.
That's correct, Your Honor. That is correct, Judge Walton.
The court finds that the factual basis is sufficient. All of the terms of the agreement are stipulated, including that the court obtain a pre-sentence investigation report, correct?
Correct.
There won't be any argument about whether prison is the appropriate sentence, and there's an agreement about the 4 counts running consecutive.
That is correct.
All right. The court finds then that Ms. Franke's pleas are made knowingly and voluntarily. The court therefore accepts and enters those pleas. The court orders the preparation of a pre-sentence investigation report to be prepared by AP&P and the Department of Corrections. Counsel, what about sentencing on February 20th? I think, do you and your client agree to waive time, counsel?
We do agree to waive time, Your Honor.
February 20th, I believe, is a Tuesday. Is that right? Tw 10 a.m.?
That works for us, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else for today?
Your Honor, maybe, I've heard the court say this several times in a different fashion. We are not binding the court to any specific sentence, and the court retains its right to sentence as it sees fit. I just mentioned that this is not a Rule 11 plea, but although it's a stipulated statement of defendant.
Counsel, approach, please.
No, Judge.
Nothing from the state.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are in recess.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Well, she seems, I don't know, that look that she gave one of the deputies, or, you know, there was a little bit strange when she walked in, but hopefully she can start, you know, redeeming herself with her family. I don't know if that's possible, but hopefully she gets the help that she needs. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a horrific thing that she did to her kids, and obviously she did more than is part of her plea agreement. But as far as that's concerned, this is for the 2 youngest. But yeah, I guess we'll see if she ever gets forgiveness from her kids in the future. But I hope for the best for all of her kids. And obviously her husband has filed for divorce. I don't know if that's been finalized at this point, but I think the best decision she did make, though, is to go for this plea agreement, because keeps her kids from having to deal any further with this emotional situation and having to testify in court. So I guess next step, we're going to see her sentencing early 2024, next year, and see what happens with her friend or ex-friend, as it may be, Jody Hildebrandt. All right, though, let me know what you guys think of this one. This has been it's very, very disturbing. This whole entire case. It goes to show, don't believe everything you see on socials. Everyone shows their best, and sometimes there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. All right, that's all I've got for this one. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and most of all, stay safe.